And let's start with the Stanford trip out to Colorado to take on the 1-4 Buffs. Of course, Stanford owning the North at 6-0 now. So, your thoughts on this, Kaelen?
I lost you for a second. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, we got Stanford going to Colorado.
Oh, I'm taking Stanford in that. I had a friend tell me that this is probably going to be a trap game for Stanford, but even though Colorado ended up playing really well last week on the road at UCLA, I think Stanford, this is their rebound game. The way that they were able to pull it out and somehow beat Wazoo last week, I'm very confident that Stanford will, if they were to get in a similar situation this week, I think they'll be able to pull it out once again.
Well, I think history tells us that we have all these undefeated teams and one-loss teams that are vying for playoff positions across the country, that somebody's going to lose to like a 3-5 team somewhere at some point. This wouldn't be the one I would eye for being that game. Matt, what do you think about the Cardinal going out to Boulder?
Well, I doubted Colorado last week against UCLA, but it turns out I think they got their number or something's going on there. I'm with Kaelen. Look, it has that on the outside, got maybe a little bit of a feel of a trap game here, but I don't think there's any way Colorado can hang with Stanford. I take Stanford, and I am looking at the spread right now, Mark, and I would take them and take them to cover the 19-point spread. I think Stanford kind of runs away against Colorado here.
I might grab the 19 at home for Colorado, but what do you think, Nick?
A week ago I would have agreed with Kaelen's friend about this being a trap game, but that close call at Wazoo, that wakes you up. There's no more easy ones. There's no more gimmies. There's no more automatic 300 yards. So I think Stanford's going to come back focused. They're going to play a lot sharper, and I think they're going to be able to take Colorado. They win, I think, pretty comfortably. I don't know if they'll cover 19, but I will take Stanford over Colorado.
Nick, there's not that one game that says, wow, like Stanford, Oregon in the past, or USC, UCLA at certain times. But just about every game is intriguing in some ways, including this next one. Arizona State, 4-4, 2-3 in the conference, going to Washington State. We saw what the Cougars were capable of, at least last week. We'll see if they can put together back-to-back performances.
Yeah. Let's play a little hypothetical. Imagine those 5 red zone trips that Wazoo had against Stanford. Imagine what that game looks like if they convert touchdowns on all of those. It'd be a much different. Yeah, or even just on one of them. But they convert on all of them, and we're talking about a big Washington State win. I want to see them clean up those red zone trips. And I want to see them, start lighting up the scoreboard. On the other hand, Arizona State's playing for their season right now. Yeah. Can Washington State get it back up and going again after such a heartbreaking loss? That's what I want to see. If they can, watch out, because that team's probably pretty angry right now, and that's exciting and a little bit scary if you're the House of Sparky.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, this Washington State team at this point, if they continue, would be the surprise team of the year in the Pac-12. They're hosting Arizona State.
Yeah, no kidding. But I'm going to go Arizona State here. I'm not totally sure, as Nick alluded to, how Washington State's able to bounce back from that. It'll be really interesting, and I think that'll definitely be one of the more entertaining games in the conference this weekend. But really, to me, it comes down to coaching as far as this game goes, and I think Todd Graham's got a huge coaching edge over Mike Leach. And just a random thought, but watching that Stanford Washington State game last week, I don't know if you got to see the end of the game, but they ran their hurry-up offense, and I know that's what Washington State likes to do, but they were sitting on a lead with like 5 minutes left, and they threw 3 passes in a hurry-up-and-go mode, and I just don't know if I trust Mike Leach to keep Washington State going at this pace. But I've been really impressed with the Cougars this year. I'm going Arizona State, though.
I would love to know through the years, because of the difficulty of the trip, the Arizona teams against the Washington teams on the road, when the records are comparable, to see what their record is traveling to Washington. So, Kaelen, we've got Arizona State going to Washington State.
I don't know what to make of it once again. Second week in a row where I feel like it's going to come down to whether or not Arizona State comes to play, and I feel like it's that way every week, isn't it? But like you guys pointed out, Washington State, it's going to be really tough for them coming off of that loss to really bounce back from it. But again, Arizona State, they're playing for their season. Like Matt pointed out, Todd Graham definitely has a coaching advantage here, and I really like the way that Arizona State's defense matches up against Wazoo's offense, as pass-happy as it is. I know that the air raid tends to expose very blitz-heavy defenses like Todd Graham's, but I feel like this could be Arizona State's week. And for some reason, I'm feeling Arizona State.
Does anybody like Oregon State against UCLA?
I'll say yes, just because I think it'd be hilarious.
You're taking your Oregon State. Got it. A whole lot, Nick. A lot riding
on. You know what? It would be hilarious if Oregon State won. They won't, but it'd be hilarious. I would enjoy that. But I think that would change our UCLA-Utah prediction for sure.
We got to go to Washington, and the Utes are only like a 2 or 3 point favorite going to Seattle to take on the Huskies. So what do you think about this one, Kaelen?
Well, I was looking at the spread on this the other day. I think when I was looking at it, Washington was the favorite by 3 points, and that blew my mind. And I guess you're saying that now Utah's favored again by a couple points, but
I will check it out.
It's going to be a better matchup than most people would expect. I think Washington's defense is really good, but then again, you're talking about Utah really coming together. This season, the way that Kyle Whittingham has been able to not only have his quarterback progress and Travis Wilson go from arguably the worst quarterback in the conference to being one of the most solid. I won't say the best, but he's been very solid under center. He's talking about Devontae Booker. I think that Washington ends up losing this game, but not by much, as the spread is pointing out. I think Utah squeaks this one out.
All right, Matt. Washington, who went to the Coliseum, of course, a few weeks ago and won at USC, is hosting Utah, the team that still controls the South.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Utah as well. I'm with Kaelen. I think this will be kind of close. I do think Utah's defense will be too good for Washington. Even when they upset SC, their offense wasn't very impressive, but their defense played incredibly well. I would expect Utah to show up here defensively, although, Mark, I will say, and I know you know this, if there's one thing I don't want to tempt when it comes to football, it's Vegas and their spreads, as I found out against Utah and SC, and that 1.5 spread in favor of Washington. I don't know. I'll tempt fate here, and I'll go Utah, but if Vegas knows something, look out.
Yeah.
So you got that checked out for us, Matt? It's 1.5?
Yeah, it's Washington at 1.5 right now.
Okay.
Washington at 4-4, and with 3 losses in the conference, is a 1.5 point favorite against Utah, who was number 3 in the country a few weeks ago and is still in the top 12. Wow. Vegas does not like Utah. They were like a 16 or 17 point underdog at Oregon. They were like a 3 or 4 point favorite against Michigan. They covered that. They were, obviously it proved out, but an underdog at USC despite having a much better record. It's interesting. But Vegas typically knows what they're talking about. So, Nick, what do you think?
I will point out, though, Vegas had USC beating Stanford by 10, so just throwing that out there. But these are 2 great coaches that get a lot out of their players, so this is going to be interesting. Washington is just deceptively tough this year, not just during the USC game, but so I think that's probably why Vegas likes them quite a bit. I think you got to go with Utah. They're just a better team. I think they're farther along in the process than Peterson is up in Seattle. It probably will be close. This is going to be probably a pretty brutal game in the box. But I think you got to go Utah, probably by a score, maybe 2.
It would be an overstatement to say that Oregon has its swag back. It's not quite to that level, but that they're getting some wins against teams that they're supposed to beat, and maybe a toss-up, obviously, on the road against Arizona State last week. Nick, your thoughts about Cal going to Oregon should be an entertaining game.
Lots of points. You can lock that up. That's my prediction. Cal's at a nosedive, though. You look at the back half of their schedule, and they just, like every difficult team you can think of in this conference, they have to play in like a month and a half stretch. I don't know what it does to the psyche of a team to lose 3 in a row and then have to, pull it together and try to take on Oregon. But I think you got to go with Oregon. I just don't see Cal getting things turned around for them. So I would take Oregon. How many points? Who knows? This could be one of those last possession games, and I hope it is because those are always fun. But I like Oregon here.
So, Matt, Stanford seems to have wrapped up the North Division. Teams vying for bowl position here with Cal and Oregon, teams that could possibly finish out 8-4, 9-3, something in that range, or they could head the other way, and it could be more like a 6-6 campaign for either one of these teams, depending on where this sends them.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the upset here, Mark. I'm gonna take Cal. I do think I'm well aware of the tailspin that they are in right now. Just coming off the loss to USC, before that Utah and UCLA. I just have one of those sneaking suspicions here that Cal is going to get things turned around. I just don't see this team dropping that many games in a row that badly. I do realize Oregon's playing much better right now, but I have a feeling that Jared Goff is going to play much better than he's been playing. A lot of it has to do with the people around him as well. But I think they go up to Oregon, they come away with the upset. I think it'll be a really close tight game, high scoring like Nick said. But I'm going to go with Cal actually.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Cal takes a nosedive. I know this is a much different team and a much better team than 2 years ago, but we're only 2 years removed from them losing 11 consecutive games. Oregon would be the team that I don't see coming off the rails at this point. But I think it's going to be entertaining, and like Nick points out, bet on points. If you're going to bet on anything, bet on the points. What do you say, Kaelen? It got Jared Goff and company going to Oregon.
No, I agree with you and Matt on this. I think that you're looking at Oregon, who's really put it together as a unit. You're starting to see that chemistry with Brendan Adams finally healthy, and not only that, but Darren Carrington being back. We saw what kind of influence he had, impact that he had on the game last week. I think that they're rolling right now. Even though Cal, I think that they're definitely talented on offense, but the defense has been shaky thus far throughout the year. And I just think that the way that Oregon has strung together their past couple performances, even squeaking the one out against Washington on the road, I think you bet on Oregon in this one.
Okay, if we were going to pick out one score before the season that was going to shock some people, yeah, the Oregon games, especially against Utah, for important games would be the ones. But just a score, it might have been Washington 49, Arizona 3. Yikes. So the Wildcats have hit a wall, to say the least, and obviously a lot has to do with the quarterback position and Scooby Wright as well. So, Kaelen, what do you think about your arch rivals limping down the stretch and going to USC?
I can't even, take pride in it because we're kind of limping down the stretch as well. But like you pointed out, I mean, they've been without their starting quarterback throughout the season. Anu Solomon has struggled with injuries. He's been in and out of the lineups. I believe he actually got taken out of last week's game, ended up getting blown out in the game. But I don't like their chances at all against USC, who's rolling right now. I mean, it could be a similar result this week, to be honest. If depending on how long Juju Smith is out, I'm not sure how long the injury will last for him. But if he's the play, then this game could end up reaching the 50s to single-digit scores. So I'll take USC.
We'll cut it over to Nick. Do you know anything about Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah, the latest today from Coach Helton. He said he did have surgery earlier in the week. He got a couple of screws put in his hand, but he's actually only questionable for this week. He could, in theory, still play against Arizona. He's just a couple of days removed from surgery. Should they play him? I don't know, but. Clay Helton's trying to establish a running game. He's going to probably run the ball at least 45 times against pretty much everyone they play. So rest Schuster, but he could possibly go. Helton said it's just basically a pain tolerance thing for him at this point.
Is there any way USC loses this game? Obviously, there's a way that they lose the game. Can you see it happening, Nick?
If Arizona gets it all together and plays like they're in theory capable of, or USC does, pulls a Washington, or pulls like a game they had against Washington, maybe. but I just don't see it. USC surging, Arizona's just heading the absolute wrong direction. At home, homecoming, it's going to be tough for Arizona to win this.
So, Matt, going back to your prediction on the South, you're taking USC to win the division now?
No, I'm going to stick with Utah to win the division, but I think SC has a chance. I think they will win out the rest of their games, and that includes obviously this weekend. I'll be there Saturday night, 7:30, which is a ridiculously late time for a kickoff. But yeah, I think they pull it together against Arizona. Nick was talking about Juju Smith. Just to give you guys a little perspective, back in my playing days, I had the same injury Juju Smith did. It was a fracture to my right ring finger. I can tell you, I didn't have the surgery that he had, but I can tell you it is completely a pain tolerance thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him play a little bit, but I don't see any way that SC should do it, just because why risk anything worse happening to that hand of his? And Arizona isn't a game where they should need Juju Smith to win, especially not at home. Fun fact for Arizona this year, they haven't had a road trip in the Pac-12 where they gave up less than 31 points defensively. So they've been atrocious defensively. I would expect that to continue, and to piggyback on to Nick's point, and also I think SC really gets that running game going, and Ronald Jones has one of his best games this weekend against Arizona. But I'll take SC to win pretty handily as well.